It's time to appropriate more garbage time. We even have a desk. I'm going for full content theft today. Most of my current viewers already know what this is. Well, this is a desk, but where this desk is. But for those that don't, we are in my 1995 Ford E150 Econoline Club Sport 30250 Mark III. There's a lot. It's a conversion van. It's an old 95 Ford conversion van. And it is my home. Why? Despite me being the proud president and sole member of the Landlord Fan Club, I was evicted from my apartment shortly after the beginning of this year. Thanks. I only was reading that. Now you're in the way. You're an idiot. Anyways, I'm reading this. Obviously, that kind of left me scrambling for a place to live. At some point, we joked about van life in the Discord. You should join. I wasn't really serious about it until my search for a new apartment kept coming up dry. Apartment shortage is a serious thing in the US. The only thing that kept coming up were absurdly expensive or restricted apartments for people on Social Security. Of which I am not. Don't you, no, don't. I just took you off of here. Stay. I considered buying a house. There was one that I was super interested in, but as soon as I called the realtor and a mortgage company to figure out what I was going to need, between the down payment and the interest and the fees, all the other little odds and ends just got really intimidating. The final number for the house ended up being a little over double the asking price. And I decided it was debt that I wasn't willing to put myself into. I went to college. I got enough as is. So in the midst of bumming a couch from a buddy of mine, I decided, fuck it. What's the worst that could happen? I sold my car, scraped together some extra funds, and bought this, which I then proceeded to gut and convert to what it is now. You can see some of the timeline in these videos. I'll save you the details. The last update was 6 months ago, and I've been living in it full time since then. I've added power, running water, refrigeration, ventilation, even have a Starlink satellite mounted directly to the roof, which I do have some complaints about, but I'll talk about that later. I got most of the amenities I had in an apartment back in my van. For the most part, I'm entirely set. I was working in Colorado during that time, hence why there's been almost no content for the last 6 months. And during every live stream or update or anything like that, people kept asking, how's van life? Are you enjoying it? What do you like? What do you not like? Well, just to be clear, I knew going into this that there would be drawbacks that came with the benefits. I'll try to touch on each of the pros and the cons in detail here, but in short, it's not bad, but it's not great either. I have most of everything I need wherever I go. It's nice to be... Don't you start... Don't you even think about it. No. Anyways, where was I? It's nice to be able to park somewhere and not have to worry about getting a hotel or finding an Airbnb or something. Just find somewhere quiet and secluded or get permission to stay somewhere. Truck stops have been my personal favorite. I haven't found one that's turned me away. Some are actually quite accommodating and friendly. I blew a coolant line for the accessory heater core at a truck stop in Missouri, and the staff there had a hot shower ready for me when I was done, because it was not a clean task. I've also met some other van lifers and truckers who found the van interesting. Maybe as a bed frame on the roof holding on the solar panels. There's just something neat about having a small space all to yourself. This is mine. I don't pay anyone to stay in it. I don't have someone knocking on my door if I'm late on rent or if I forget to cut my grass. The only thing I have to worry about is gas and insurance. Most places have free water fill-ups. Propane is cheap to fill, way cheaper than natural gas. I could spend about $12 and it lasts me the whole month. So I can cook my spaghetti with meat. Told you I was going to be answering questions. And I don't have a power bill. Though the initial cost of the power is not cheap. The biggest benefit by far, though, is the things you see on the road. Look at the giant Daffy I found. Look at the pyramid. I even got to meet Bucky in person. America's favorite beaver. Not me, though. I'm stronger than that. I won't bend to this monarch of capitalism. That's right. I used to work in retail. I know all of your tricks. They won't work on me, no matter how loud your brisket chants pierce my ears. Though brisket doesn't actually sound too bad right now. And it is just food. No one's gonna know. Same with the cinnamon rolls from the bakery. They're not branded or anything, they're just cinnamon rolls. Maybe just a rubber duck. I mean, it's fitting for the content. A sticker too, just to prove I made it out of there without falling for the evil capitalist mind games of this damn rodent. I fucking love Buc-ee's, bro. Now I want to point out, before I go into my negatives, many of these issues are entirely on me. Whether it be lack of understanding, planning, or my own prowess and mechanics and such getting to me. I can't hide the fact that some of these are of my own doing. Remember when I said that I blew a coolant line in Missouri? That is only a drop in the bucket compared to the issues I've had with this thing. I feel really bad for saying this since many people supported either through Patreon or donations to help buy this thing. But would you believe that this 30-year-old Ford van is a piece of I know it's hard to believe. Reality is, I should have known better. I think the worry of becoming a burden, bumming on a couch from Farva was getting to me, which is why I was so eager to just buy it and be done. And the second I bought it, the cracks started to show. The rear end was destroyed, the brakes were cooked, the steering was sloppy, the engine was running really, really bad. The signs were there that this was a bad purchase. We already gave the guy $2K for the thing. I couldn't find anything cheaper from someone that wasn't being a jackass. Although a really nice ambulance popped up for sale not too far from where I was right after I bought this thing. So that's awesome. And I did think to myself, I've owned plenty of old Fords. I could fix this thing. I've rebuilt 8.8s, I've done brakes, I had an idea of what I was doing. I was able to fix a decent amount of the glaring issues. But then more issues started to show up. The MAF sensor conked out, which was not cheap. The smog pump seized, destroying a brand new belt I had just put on. Luckily, it seized right next to an O'Reilly's, so I just had to go in and out of there trying different belts to bypass that. The coil died, the distributor cap, rotor, and wires were shot. I mean, look at this thing. Do you notice anything wrong here? Yeah, it turns out the whole time I owned this, cylinder number 5 was eating itself alive. I'm gonna guess that the spark plug wire was cracked or something like that, and this just turned this brass insert into a anode. It's even pretty bad on the back. Actually, it's bad on all of them. Now, I could probably clean this up, but luckily I had spares. The weird thing was, though, that when my brother and I pulled the van apart to fix this, it literally looked like the whole engine bay had been on fire at one point. And I really wouldn't be surprised if that was actually the case, because there's a lot of history that I don't know about this van. But I couldn't find replacement hosing, so we just got some new hose clamps and threw it on, and I'm sure it'll be fine. Also, the brand new seals I just put in when I rebuilt the rear axle, driver's side and the pinion seal, already leaking again. And that pinion seal sucks to replace on an 8.8. Gotta pull the pinion out, and then to tighten it back up, you gotta put like something like 500 foot-pounds of torque on it, which is really hard when you're underneath the thing in the dirt, but you only have about, I don't know, that much space to move a giant breaker bar. Yeah, I'm not doing that again, I'm just gonna let it leak. And that isn't even including just the general wear and tear on this thing. It's only got, allegedly, 150,000 miles on it, but it handles like it's got 1,000,000. I tightened the steering box up before I left. Nah, sails like a boat. It's so sloppy, the thing just wallows really bad. Needs new steering, new shocks. Transmission is slipping hard. The old 302 is just tired. There's a hidden fuel smell I cannot trace. I thought it was the fuel tank itself, but nothing's leaking there, and none of the lines seem to be leaking. So I'm imagining there might be a slightly stuck injector that's leaking into the cylinders themselves. It's just, there's a lot of things that still need to be fixed, and I fear that as soon as I fix those things, more problems are just gonna pop up again. Though, it did walk off me hitting a Buick that pulled out in front of me. I wish I got that on camera, especially since he took off. I didn't have my dash cam installed yet, though. Luckily, all I got was a loose bumper. He ended up far worse than I did. He would have been found at fault anyways, but insurance wouldn't fathom fixing this thing, so honestly, he's got a fuck door. I say that's karma served. But yeah, I feel really bad saying this thing ended up being such a pile of shit, since so many people helped me get to this point. But I'd feel even worse saying, oh yeah, everything's great, go get you one. Especially since a bunch of people have been asking me since they're interested in doing this lifestyle themselves. So the takeaway is, make sure that what you're buying is good. A lot of people trash the ProMasters and Transit vans for being unreliable junk, and they may be in some cases, but these older vans have been on the road a lot longer, changed more hands, have seen way more shit. There's a lot more years of mystery with buying older stuff like this. Don't get burned. And that's not to say you should just straight up avoid older vans, just take more time and caution when buying one, unlike I did. And on the topic of these newer vans, they're super roomy. Way more than this thing. I got the high top, and I'm glad I did, because it's way better than the stock roof height of an Econoline. I know, this isn't my first time trying something like this. Funnily enough, it was also a piece of shit Econoline. But I still can't fully stand up in it. I'm 6'4", and yes, I like to brag about it. So I still have to crouch and bend my neck to fit in this thing. Especially with this net that I put in. Which I don't regret, but it does cut down on space. While I was in Colorado, I met some other van lifers with those newer ProMasters and such, and the space inside of those things is just insane. Makes the Econoline look like a clown car. Full-size bed, decent-sized kitchen, way more storage, just way more comfortable to move around in. All in these things. If you want a good point of reference for these things, check out Ryan Toomey. He's got one, he's also just a cool guy. Go check him out. So yes, keep in mind your space needs when considering what to buy. A lot of people commented how comfy and cozy this thing looked, and it is. But as soon as you start living this thing, cozy and comfy quickly turns to cramped and confined. Everyone's situation is a bit different. If you're shorter, you might be able to get away with putting your bed across the back instead of lengthwise like I had to do. I also had to accommodate a workspace and a space for my stinky, smelly, non-personal space-respecting cat. Nutters! You hear him. Meow. I know, I threw you off the first time, so now you don't know what to do. I hate to point fingers, but I love this guy. I love him. I would die for him. But he's definitely a big factor in space. Despite being... I can't read again! Despite being just a cat, cats have needs of their own. Space to rest, space to eat, space to play. Owie. And for the most part, I can share most of that. But there is space I can't quite share with him. And that's where it gets awkward. Ah! He attacked my ankle when he jumped down. Cats need a private space to do their private business, so I had to section off a space underneath the bed for him to do just that. And it takes up a lot of space. The smell can get pretty powerful, even with ventilation. Then there's just the chore of cleaning it up, every day. I can sometimes stretch it a few days, but no more than that, which means moving the TV, moving the sheets and pillows, lifting up the bed, then the platform, clean up his business, and then reverse the process. He's trying to get back on the desk again. I won't allow it again. Doing that 5 to 7 times a week gets to be a little bit of a chore. His tail is hitting the boom. That doesn't even include changing out the water under the sink, which caused me to break these cabinet doors a few different times, these horribly uncomfortable chairs I have to buy to fit under the desk, or just keeping this thing clean. With a little bit better planning or some custom work like underslung tanks... Underslung tanks? Underslung tanks? Tanks is the word I was looking for. It wouldn't be as much of an issue. It's things that can be fixed or sacrificed if need be. Except for Nutters. I've had him since he was born, and I'm not giving up on him now. Though I do feel bad that he lost so much space in this ordeal. What I would do, get a large box or tote, say 4 foot by 3 foot by 3 foot, like a small refrigerator box, or just, again, the large tote from Walmart. Put all of your necessities in it, things that you cannot live without. Then start filling it with things that you want to bring, in order of importance. Once it's full, that's about how much you should bring. That could vary a bit depending on how much storage you could actually squeeze out of your build, but it gives you a rough idea. And you'll figure out what you want to downsize. Things like dishes, silverware, clothes, I'd argue it's better to have less of those that you regularly maintain, rather than a large collection. 1 or 2 forks, spoons, and a knife. Handful of shirts and such. You'll think yourself, trust me. Final point. For the love of all that is holy, do not cheap out on your amenities. There are deals to be found. With a bit of research, you can find alternatives to things that would be just a little bit too expensive, like this stove. I got it for $100, and the burners are great. The oven is a bit junk, it burns way hotter than what the gauge says on the front, but it's still a decent stove for the price. I also got this faucet for cheap, which I didn't know they were so expensive in the first place. It works fine, though I do wish it was a bit taller though. Most of the furniture in here, I built myself for dirt cheap. I don't think I ever broke $50 for all the hardware and materials. The bed frame is made entirely of free pallets. The kitchenette is an old entertainment center that was taking up space in my buddy's shop. The desk and propane storage, they're $20 together. You'd be amazed how far you can get with just scraps. You gotta be willing to put up with the rough edges though. However, a lot of stuff is cheap for a reason. Starting with this dome vent. It's a name brand Max Air vent. I got it for like 80-ish bucks. And this thing stopped working after just a month. Turns out, everything is exposed on top, and the solder joints for the fuse just broke off. Make sure you clock this so that way the lid doesn't flap around in the wind. It looks like you can mount it however you like. You really can't. This lid only latches on one side, so the other side just flops around in the wind. Regardless, this vent is just anemic. It draws hardly any air, and for the most part just blows around air up top. It's loud and rattly after just a bit of use. It sucks. The ring light is nice though. I wish it was a bit of a warmer color. Still wouldn't recommend it. That pales in comparison to the power system though. Again, this is something you shouldn't cheap out on. I only did it because I physically did not have the money for a Victron system or the lights. So I settled for 2 24-volt 200-watt solar panels. That feeds into a solar charger that buck converts it back down to 12 volts and raises the amperage. And then that charges a 300 amp hour lithium iron phosphate battery that powers all the 12-volt electronics and the inverter for AC power. I ended up buying a lifetime charger and inverter along with the battery monitor. And it seems like they have an okay quality. They aren't crazy good, but they do the job. However, I bought the battery from a company called Chins, and from what I read, they are an incredibly hit or miss. You might get a decent battery for a good price, or you might get junk. It is straight up gambling. But it was cheap, and you know, it wasn't actually bad. I had plenty of power for all my lights and accessories, and I could leave the cooler on 24/7 on max. And with all of that, I could use my PC and have plenty of power left. My general rule of thumb was 60% was my cutoff with PC usage. That would give me enough to run everything at night, watch a bit of TV, and it would charge up decently quick from 45 to 50% in the morning, all the way to 100% over the course of the day. I was able to rely on this for all summer long. That was until recently. It went from 60% to 0% in the blink of an eye. Battery just died out of nowhere, and I'm not sure what happened. I know I had the parameters set on the meter properly, and I still haven't changed them since then because I know they were correct. So I took everything off, I didn't use anything, I put my cooler into eco mode and plugged it into the van's power itself. And I just let it charge back up, and it seemed fine, until it did it again within a few days. At that point, I just let it fully discharge. I disconnected the solar charger, then once I knew it was dead, I put it back on the charger to reset the BMS. It hasn't done it since, and once again, I still haven't touched anything on the monitor. All the settings are the same. But now this battery drains way faster than it once did. In the same amount of time I used to be able to use my PC and only get to about 60%, it now will flatten it completely. So something went fucky, and it's still fucky. And I'm gonna have to fix that, which might mean buying a new battery. I can't reiterate this enough. I feel really bad that 6 months between updates and it's just a bunch of negatives. But with people saying stuff like, I'm living vicariously through you, I feel it's a bit necessary to ensure that you know what you're getting into. Do as I say, not as I do. If you're in a pinch and are considering this as a solution, take a deep breath and really make sure to consider your options. If you have to sleep in a guest room for a few extra weeks to ensure that you find something that's going to be the right fit, do it. Once you do, make sure you get all your amenities done properly. Your situation might be different than mine. You might find that one of those small Jackery all-in-one units are more than enough for you. Those are solid systems for the average guy. Trust me when I say you really want to make sure you're doing it right the first time. It might seem like I'm trying to scare you guys out of it, but the reality is, this is going to be your home. You don't just want to skip out on stuff. And when things work out, it's really fun and rewarding. When things work out right, you won't regret it. That being said, to answer the question, would I live in this thing permanently? I wouldn't say permanently. Eventually, I would like to settle down and do stuff that I couldn't do if I was living on the move constantly. But 4-5 years maybe before that point, yeah. But not in this. This is where I answer the question and really get the nerd out. Ooh, I'm excited. If you had more money and time, what would you change? Everything. I know, stupid simple answer, nobody saw that coming, but I already know exactly what I want to do. While I was working in Colorado over the summer, I would go up in the mountains during the weekend to camp out. One weekend while I was set up, I was approached by a guy. Keep hitting the buggy. I was approached by a guy that was interested in the build, and I think it was the solar bed frame mount. People really dig it. It's a good conversation starter. He wanted to know a bit about the build and so on, and so we got to talking. Then he showed me his van that was parked around the bend. Except it wasn't a van. It was a bus. 2008 International, according to him. It was a little short one with a wheelchair lift on the back. Obviously, the lift was gone, but the thing was decked out. I wish I had brought my phone with me, but I left it charging in the van. I felt asking to take pictures of what is essentially someone's home was a bit rude. He'd have probably been fine with it, I just don't want to ask. But trust me, the thing was awesome. Had a full kitchenette, full-size desk with a full-size chair, little futon couch, walk-in shower, and the bedroom was completely separate in the back with a full bed. The thing was sick. Obviously, the dude had a lot of money in that thing. But what it got me was just how roomy it was with even all of this stuff. And I could stand in it. If I could start again, that's what it would be. Now, dude had an overly wicked and expensive power system, full Victron setup, like 1200 amp hours worth of battery. Said he never saw it below 75% with like normal non-Nagari use. I don't think I would need something that powerful, but even half that would be more than enough. Had a little mini split AC system, proper camper stove with an electronic temperature control, an actual office chair. You can tell I probably hate these chairs a lot. That's the dream. That's not going to happen anytime though. Though if there was ever a point I could do that, I know a lot of people were bummed I didn't record the build process of the van, instead just doing staggered updates, but I really wanted to just get this thing done so I had a roof back over my head without dealing with a camera and commentary and whatnot. So, if something like that becomes a possibility, I will make sure to do a full, in-depth build series. You can hold me to that. Ray said he would be willing to help me with the conversion if I ever got one, so 2 sets of hand would make that way easier and faster. Who knows? Maybe we could talk a sponsor into funding it. Can't keep ignoring my emails, Schlatt. I keep giving your products free advertising. I'm not hearing this phone ring. Ooh, don't look at that actually. Where's my Wendy Shaker, Schlatt? I'm mobile. Sorta. I'm not bound to any physical address. I'll find you. I'll fucking find you. I almost forgot to talk about Starlink. For satellite internet, it's not bad. It's still slow compared to hardwire internet, but it's perfectly usable, though it does cut out a lot intermittently. And it takes forever to boot up if you've moved locations, probably like close to 5 to 8 minutes. And then you gotta deal with it setting itself up while it is connected, so that first 20-30 minutes is really, really slow. But let me tell you, the price of this thing is absolutely criminal. It's about $600 to get the setup, and then it was another $150 a month to run it. There was a separate plan for InMotion and watercraft use, and it was $300 a month. And I wasn't going to use that anyway, so I didn't even bother. But now the two plans are combined, and the price has gone up to $180 a month. After fees and taxes, that's almost $200 a month. $2,400 a year for satellite internet service. That makes Spectrum look like a charity service. And again, these are features I think most people aren't going to use, so it's just an extra cost for zero reason. Now, it's not contracted, I could shut it off and not pay for a month. But still, I mean, I can't say I'm really too surprised. Look at the owner. I think he knows there's no competition that even comes close to the service, so he can scalp his customers as he pleases. That $180 a month makes those intermittent dropouts even more annoying. A lot of people recommended mobile hotspots as an alternative. Those things are junk. A lot of those mobile hotspot plans are also absurdly expensive and perform way worse. They require you to be within a range of a tower, which is not possible in most places I've stayed. Plus, many of them have data caps I know I'd burn through really quickly. So in many cases, Starlink is really the only option. So raising an already absurdly high service fee? Yeah. Fuck you, Elon Musk. I wonder why your wives leaving your kids hate you. Anyways, other questions. Will you come and swap the van? No. Though an ISX bus would be neat. I have a bit of experience with that motor from college. What games do you enjoy? And what do you plan making videos on? Any non-related driving games you might cover? I'm enjoying Vintage Story a bunch, though I'm not sure if I can make a video on it since it's a really complex and a complete playthrough could take months. So I might keep that to myself. I do want to cover Satisfactory, though it's the same issue there. So it's more of going to be a long-term project. I do want to recover The Long Dark since a bit has changed in that game and I didn't do a very good job covering the first time, along with Voices of the Void since 1.0 should be releasing at some point either early next year or later on next year. There's also a bunch of other games I want to cover. It's just, I don't know what I want to do first. Are you opposed to doing IRL videos? I'm not opposed to them, I'm just not good at them. I rely heavily on a script. Even now, I'm just reading off a screen in front of me. I don't have the focus and intelligence to commentate and record at the same time and still make it interesting. Though, I do want to try. I bought a camera and a few different accessories to try and do some IRL videos, though they just aren't coming out that well. You've probably been seeing me sprinkle in that footage throughout the video. I may just do videos with IRL footage and then do the voiceover afterwards. I think that would give me a lot more control and I can focus on recording and then keeping in mind what I want to say later. I do also have some other ideas, like some thrift shopping I Spy style videos. It's something that we do in the Discord server whenever I go to one. You should join. But I'm already stealing enough from Dink Pods, and I don't think I would win against the Cashy ripoff accusations. How are you doing? Exhausted, I think would be the right word. I don't want to get preachy and such, but for the last few years I've definitely taken a beating. Though if I just give up on everything, it's only going to get worse. So I'm just trying to push through it and hope nothing gives. I know trying to make it full-time as a YouTuber and artist right now was such a terrible decision. It should have been something I waited longer on. But I legitimately don't even think I'd be alive right now if I stuck to what I was doing. 12 hours a day, 7 days a week of back-breaking work under a hood, breathing fumes for a company that clearly doesn't give a shit about you? It's not a life worth living. And it's not worth dying for, as a few people have. I know I have a long ways to go before I'm ever living comfortably again, but at least I know that if I fail, it's on me, and not because some desk jockey in corporate wanted a few extra dollars from laying everyone off. I know I said I wasn't going to get preachy, and now I've just started doing that here. Here, let me make it short. The whole reason I stopped welding and got out of trades is this thing. This is a piece of scrap angle iron that hit me in the head hard enough to knock me out. Luckily, it hit me broadside. And it still took a decent chunk out of me anyways, but I firmly believe it hit me at any other angle, it would have punched my ticket. It spooked the shit out of me. So, yeah, I'm stressed, but not enough to go back and give this thing a second chance. That's about all I have for this. I appreciate everyone sticking around through this cinema-worthy fuck-up of mine. I'm going to do my best to put my nose to the grindstone and start making content that people want regularly. I'm trying to figure out how to fill the gaps between review videos, since those take a lot of time. So if you have any ideas what you guys would like to see, let me know. I have no idea how to end this video.